Good morning, Stampers, or good afternoon or evening, depending on when you're watching this. This is Ginger from StampingTheCape.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I'm here today to show you a quick pop-up card I did as one of my alternates for the January 2019 Paper Pumpkin. Many of you have probably already done this, but for those of you who've never done a simple pop-up card, I thought I'd show you how I did mine. So this month's Paper Pumpkin kit was these cute little pillow boxes that you can fill with Valentine treats, and it coordinates with the Animal Expedition suite. I did not have on hand the stamp set and dies, but I did have the Designer Series paper. And it's really cute. In fact, I was looking at this sheet. I said this sheet would go perfectly with the Celebration little froggy set, if I can find it right here. So hoppy together. This would go really cute with this. So you can use it for something besides these projects. Then we have some little alligators, and as you can see on the back side is a geometric solid. And then on the back of this one we've got green, darker green. I think this is either garden green, I think. And then this one we have the smaller images of the giraffe, the elephant, the alligator, and the hippo, and of course the chameleon. And then we have a larger version of that, and we have a, I believe that's a sloth on there too, which you could cut out and use. And then again on the back of these, this one has, I want to say, I didn't look up the colors. Anyway, it could be, I think it may be a Calypso coral, something like that. And this one has the giraffe sort of print on the back. And then this is the hippos with gray. It could be basic, I think it's basic gray. And then this one's kind of pretty with all the little birds, and it has rich raspberry. I believe that's the color. So anyway, I incorporated some of these papers into my projects, but for this one, it's all done with the kit items. So what we're going to do is start off with, other than the kit item, I did use a piece of Whisper White. For this card, I used the regular Whisper White. It's a little bit thin, so I thought this time I'd use the thick Whisper White, but if you have the regular standard Whisper White, you can go with that. So what I'm going to do is fold my cardstock in half. And this is 4 1/4 by 11. I'll include a PDF with measurements, but there really aren't too many measurements. And then on a separate piece of paper, I'm going to stamp one of the little birds, and then I'm going to stamp the birds in succession. So it looks like they're flying, and I'm going to use the Tuxedo Black Memento ink for that, which you probably have a black from. If you've been a Paper Pumpkin subscriber, you probably have black from that, or have a black stamp pad of sorts. I'm going to be coloring with Stampin' Blends because I really like the way they color, and because of that, you really want to use Memento, because when the alcohol ink interacts with other types of ink, they could bleed. So I'm going to start with my bird right about here. I will make sure it's well inked, even though we won't see this one. And then I'm going to use a little 1 1/4 inch circle that we're going to be using on the card as my guide. And then I'm going to stamp a second one without re-inking, like he's flying down, and then I'm going to stamp a third one sort of off the card, so it looks like he's coming down into the card. And then we can stamp another one. As I said, this is a 1 1/4 inch circle. We can stamp him right on there, because we're going to color him in for the front eventually. All right, so that's our little bird for that. And then we're going to stamp the other bird from the set, and he's going to go on the inside of the card, so we'll use him later, but I'm going to stamp him now. I always close my ink pads. I'm always worried about getting ink on something, especially with working with Whisper White. I always seem to do that, so I'm just going to stamp Just a little, you need a little scrap paper for that. So that's our two birds. And then I'm going to use, For You, My Friend, is on the front of the card. We might as well stamp that as well. And I'm going to use that circle again as a guide to make sure that I don't have overlap there. Let's see what I do with my, there he is. Just so I know I have space for that sentiment. So need a little more ink. Okay. So we'll put this aside for now because we are going to stamp on the inside. Okay, so I have used Pool Party ink. Excuse me, I thought I had pulled out all my colors. I used Pool Party ink for this background. It's the little hash mark. And so I'm going to fill this in. And I will speed up this portion of the tutorial so you don't have to sit around watching me stamp forever. Okay, so we've got our background done, and it's not perfect, it's just random. You know, I've sort of got it in lines, but it's nothing critical. So I'm going to stamp my little bird, excuse me, I'm going to color my little bird. So I'm using the dark Granny Apple Green for the majority of his body. And as I said, I like the way the blends when I'm doing this type of coloring work, because you don't get the same kind of visual lines when you're using the Stampin' Write markers. The Stampin' Write markers are great if you want to color onto your stamps and get multiple colors in a design. You shouldn't use alcohol markers on your stamps because the alcohol can break down the rubber over time. But like I said, for this type of coloring, I just really love alcohol markers. So now I'm going in with Mango Melody, and this is the dark. The previous was the dark Granny Apple Green. I don't know if I said that, but this is the dark Mango Melody. Doing sort of bright tropical colors for this bird. Okay, so he's all set. We'll put him aside. Oh, by the way, in case you hadn't been with me before, I'm doing a new monthly stamp club. I usually do one locally, but I'm offering my stamp club projects. I've done 3 videos on them, and if you place a $35 order by January 30th using this hostess code, I'll send you the materials you need to make those projects for free. So, okay, so here's the inside of my pop-up. It's very simple, but as I said in my post earlier this week, did you figure out what this is to make my tree, top of my tree? It's actually one of these guys flipped around, and when I saw the little, I don't know if that's a mosquito, I guess, or whatever in the tropics, I debated whether to cut him off, and I thought, well, no, because he could have landed underneath the tree and, you know, be working his way up. So we're going to take one of our chameleons and punch that out. We're actually going to use another one on the back because I found this is going to be like this, actually like this. And I didn't like the idea that you could see them on the back, so we're actually going to use another one. It matches almost exactly, and that's how I got the little dragonfly when you cover them up, so you'll end up with white. But so first we're going to take one of your chameleons, and we're going to use Granny Apple Green and a sponge. Now you can either use the dauber if you prefer. I'm using one of our sponges that I've cut up into segments. They work really well that way. And I'm just going to color that in. And you just want to be a little bit gentle because you could tear this. So I'm just going to keep adding layers and layers of ink onto it to turn it green. And having color variations of the green will make it look a little more realistic. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so there's my green tree. And then I just took for my trunk, oh, I hope I don't get ink on my card. For my trunk, I took a 1" by 2 3/4 inch piece of crumb cake, and I'm just gonna randomly cut that. And again, I'm gonna speed this part up, but you can see what I'm doing. You want to leave at least a 1/4 inch center trunk piece, and I'm just gonna zigzaggy the trunk. No trunk is perfectly smooth. Well, I had a little bit of an interruption. My phone rang. I forgot to turn the ringer off. So right now I'm just doing some upper branches of the tree, and then we'll be done with that. And again, I'm just wiggling it a little bit so it looks kind of rough. Very rough when I leave a little piece hanging there. Okay. All right. So just to add a little more texture to my tree trunk, I'm going to use again the sponge with crumb cake and just sponge the edges of my tree, just to add a little more interest to it and texture and dimension. If you don't like sponging, you don't have to do that. But since the critters sort of have a soft edge to them with shading and whatnot, I figured I'd follow suit. All right. I want to get a paper towel and clean my hands a little bit because I just don't want to get ink all over my card. Okay, so there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my colored chameleons to the top of my tree. And I'm going to use some multi-purpose liquid glue. I can control it, but and I was also afraid if I put any kind of snail, but you could use glue dots for this as well. I think it would work just as well. But I just like using little dollops of this glue, and it really holds well. So your preference of whatever type of glue you want to use. The glue dots are in the kit, so you know, they're right there for you to use. So I'm just gonna attach that portion of the tree, and then I'm going to grab another set of chameleons. I'm going to end up using 3 of them for this tree, and they're going to get glued this way on the back, so it just covers them up. And if you have, it almost matches exactly, and if you have any edges sticking out that you don't like, you can either trim them off or you can actually sponge them with a little more green if you'd like. So I'm going to glue this guy. Don't put any adhesive on your or glue dots. You can use your kit glue dots for this. Don't put any adhesive on your little dragonfly mosquito, whatever he is, because he's going to be sticking out of the edge of the tree. So you don't want to have glue on him, and you don't want to have glue sticking out anywhere, because if you do, you're going to end up with your card sticking together and not popping up when it gets opened. So there we go. Pretty happy with that. Scooch it up a little bit it that way. That's pretty good. All right, so there's the tree. Okay, and then we're going to stick another set of chameleons down here, but we can do that once we attach it to the card. So in order to attach it to the card, I don't know if you see this little mechanism. What I've done is I've cut a 1/4 inch strip of Whisper White, and this one happens to measure 1/4 inch by 8.5, and I've scored it at 2 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, and 8 inches. And I'm going to use tear and tape to put this together. So I'm going to fold on each of those score lines, making sure it's straight. And on this last little tab, I'm going to put some tear and tape there. And close that up. I'm trying to get this video done we had such a sunny day, and there is a storm coming through. I think here on the Cape we're primarily going to get rain or just a slushy mess, but my sun's starting to leave, starting to get cloudy, so I want to try to get this in before I have too many shadows. All right, so now what you're going to do is, this is how our mechanism is going to work, and you want to make sure your tree is within the card so that it's not hanging out off the side here. So we're going to take tear and tape again, and we're going to put it on 3 sides. So this, I usually put my seam at the bottom of the card here. So you're going to put tear and tape on that seam side, on the back side, and then on this side, which is where we're going to attach our tree. And I'd probably use 3 separate pieces rather than 1 long piece, but I guess you could do it in 1 long one, but I don't know, I just prefer the control of the separate pieces. And if you go off the edge a little bit, tear and tape, you can roll it back in towards the center area where you're going to have it attached. So you don't have to worry about being perfect on that part. As you can see, I haven't been. Okay. Make sure that's down. So let's see, where's my bottom pieces here? So as I said, this is the one with the seam I'm going to attach to the bottom of the card. Okay. And I don't know if you can see that, there's a little bit of tape hanging over the edge. I'm going to just take my finger and roll it towards the adhesive part so it's not hanging over. Keep it all within my little pop-up tab here. Okay. Okay, make sure my folds are... All right, so once again, I'm gonna see, where do we want our tree? We want it about here. We want to make sure we have room for that. Make sure your width is there. So now I'm just gonna line it up right on the edge of where the score line is and stick that down. So we have a good pop-up. Then I'm going to take the back adhesive off. Pardon my head. I'm sure it's in the shot. And I think we're pretty good. I'm just make sure that all the adhesive is towards that center. Nothing is sticking out. Okay. Then I'm just going to lay the card down. So that brings it up, and now we can attach our tree to this front piece. And again, I'm gonna roll that tape. So there, so we've got the first part of our, oops, what did I do? Oh, I think I got it. There we go. So we've got the first part of our pop-up in place. Okay, so now I'm going to take one of our little kangaroos from the kit, and on this one I've cut a 1/2 inch by 6.5 inch piece, and I've scored it at 1.5, 3, 4.5, and at 6. Yeah, 6, because it's 6.5. This one I made a little shorter because I wanted our kangaroo to sit behind the tree area. So you can make different dimensions of your pop-ups this way. There are other ways to make pop-up cards. You can also do an insert with cuts that pop out, but it sometimes makes the card a little bulky. So again, I'm just going to put a piece of tear and tape to close it together. And make another square. Okay, so we've got our square there, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put tear and tape on 3 sides. Again, I'm using the seam side for the bottom. So this one's going to go here. So I can see the shadows are coming in. And if I turn my overhead lights on, it gets really shadowy. So here's my 3rd side. Okay, so again, I'm going to attach the bottom piece to the base of the card. And you have to be careful with tear and tape once you stick it, because it really, the reason we're using it is because it really does stick really well. Uh-oh, I put tear and tape. Speaking of which, I put tear and tape on the wrong side. So we're just going to switch it up. I want it this way. So the seam's not going to be in the bottom. Oh well. That's the way it goes. See, I make mistakes too. It's not the end of the world if your seam isn't on the bottom. Alright, so once again, I'm going to line it up. I want to make sure I've got all my kangaroos going to be within the card. So, right in there. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to attach kangaroo. I'm going to attach the back. I should have attached the back first, but since the front piece I had already tore off the protective sheet, I just attached the kangaroo first. But so there you go. So there's your basic little pop-up, and like on mine I can see here that there's a little white showing. That doesn't bother me. If it does, you can cut your strip just slightly smaller. Okay, so now we're going to do our last little bird to color it in, and on this one I used the dark Flirty Flamingo for its main body. And unfortunately we have to hand cut this, because as you know with paper pumpkin there aren't any dies, but that's, again, I don't mind. This one isn't too bad. And I usually leave a little bit of a white edge when I cut things out, because that way if you make a little error, it's not as visible. And I didn't get super detailed with the curvature of his feathers and stuff. I just kind of went in and out. I didn't go all the way down because the base of his tail is very narrow, so you would end up cutting it off. Ask me how I know. So I'm just giving him a little bit of a white cloud around him. And it adds a little more substance to him as well. Then around his feet, I'm just, because we're going to attach those feet to the tree, so I want to give him something to attach with. Okay, let me get all this out of here. Okay, so again, I'm going to use some little dab of the multi-purpose liquid glue, but you can use a glue dot to attach him to the top of the tree. Right up here. Okay, and we're going to take our third set of chameleons and attach them to the bottom of the tree. Again, you can use glue dots for this. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue here. Attach those guys. Yeah, that's pretty much. So there we go. And then we're just going to stamp our sentiment, "You're so fly." Haven't heard that in a ton of ages. I think that was when I was growing up. That used to be a term. I don't know that it still is. So we're just going to, again, use Memento. And there we go. And we're done. So I hope you like that. Again, oh wait, we have to put our little bird, I'm sorry, with dimensional. And what did I do with, I open my kit up. I thought, oh no, they're right here. Duh. Forgot about him. Just stick one little dimensional on the back of him. Get him on board. There we go. All right, so now we've got, oh, and add a little heart too. Ay, ay, ay. I added a little heart, or one of the hearts here. And then I use the smaller pink ones for the lighter birds here. These are really cute, these little accents. So there we go. Now I think I'm done. So there's your pop-up card with your little critters. I hope you like that. And if you have any questions, let me know. And again, if you need your catalogs, the Celebration catalog or your Occasions catalog, Celebration goes on through March 31st. You place a $50 order prior to shipping and taxes, and you get a free product from the Celebration catalog. There's lots of really nifty stamp sets, kits, ribbon. Oh, and also I should just mention too, if you like Stampin' Up! And you'd like to increase your stash, this is the perfect time to join. If you join Stampin' Up! And you don't have to be a full-fledged demonstrator, do workshops, nobody's going to call you and harass you, including me. You can purchase for $99 $175 worth of product and receive free shipping, which is a deal and a half. And if you like this clever little tote, if you do, you know, crops or things like that, it's a great tote for carrying all your supplies in. For $129, you can get the tote and the $175 worth of products for just $129. The tote is worth $50 alone. So anyway, it's something to think about. I'd be happy to have you as part of my team. So thanks so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.